So welcome to everyone for joining us today. We have MP Neil Ellis with us, and I want to thank you on behalf of the City of Belleville, the Belleville Chamber of Commerce, Quinte West Chamber of Commerce, and Prince Edward County Chamber of Commerce for joining us as part of Small Business Week. It is our final In Conversation series. So we've spoken with the health unit this morning. We've also spoken with the MP Todd Smith to talk a little bit about how the provincial programming and impact has been on business. And so now we have a small group of people here to talk to you today. And I'll let them really quickly introduce themselves. And then I'll just give you a quick overview of what we've talked about. And then maybe, you're going to give us a little bit of a overview of what's happening at your end. Then we'll give you a little quick overview of what's happening on our end. So go ahead. Maybe I'll have Candy Newman introduce yourself first. Maybe not. Cindy?
Hello, Neil. It's Cindy Wilson. I'm the Human Resources and Health and Safety Manager for Beck-Lawat Manufacturing here in Belleville.
And maybe we can have Lori?
Hi, Lori Dennis. I'm Vice President of Finance at Trenton Cold Storage.
Maxine?
Hi, I'm Maxine Holland, a small business owner, Preferred Personal Care. I provide PSW services in our region.
Peter Kempenaar?
Yes, Peter Kempenaar from Task Force Engineering, also First Vice President of the Chamber of Commerce and Chairman of the Government Affairs Committee. So interested to hear what everyone has to say. Thanks.
And Scott Rudvotz?
Hi, Neil. I'm Scott Rudvotz. I'm the Chairman of the Quinte Manufacturing Association, and I'm also the VP of Operations at Domtech, one of the wire and cable manufacturers in Trenton.
And I see that we have Lisa Kuipers, who's just joined us. Go ahead, and we're just doing introductions right now. You're muted. You're still muted.
There. Hello, everybody. I'm Lisa Kuipers-Schroeder. I look after the Downtown Trenton Business Association. We look after the marketing and the beautification of downtown Trenton.
And we also have Suzanne Andrews.
Thanks. Neil and I know each other well enough to be able to, he knows what's sort of going on with the business community here in Quinte West. Despite everything, we are doing lots of new business openings, tend to be very small businesses, a lot of micro businesses opening up. There's definitely challenges out there, and look forward to hearing what Neil has to say.
Good, and I know Carol seems to be having some trouble connecting by voice, but she's representing Wesley Acres, is that correct? Give me a thumbs up. Okay, and the camp in the south of the county, certainly familiar with that space. So thank you for joining us. And we have someone from Jennifer Mills's, the Quinte District Rehab Office. Maybe it's not actually Jennifer, and that's fine. But Quinte District Rehab offers home care support for physio, OT, and I'm not sure if they do nursing care, but my familiarity is that's where my mom has worked for a number of years. So I'm glad to have them on the call as well. Neil, please, why don't you give us your update on, did I catch everybody, please? Yeah. Okay, so yeah, Neil, give us your update on how things are going.
Okay, I got to start. I got a few words for you, and I just like to thank the chambers and all the chambers in the local neighborhood for Small Business Week. And today is day 4 of Small Business Week. As a former small business owner myself, I understand the importance of communication among peers, whether it's networking or just sharing ideas. It's about small businesses and what they give back to our community, not only in products, but in social corporate responsibility. It's not easy to be a small business person. But we do survive. And as Suzanne mentioned, I think over the last 2 weeks, I've cut ribbons for 4 small businesses. So small businesses are starting to thrive and opening up under the COVID restrictions. So that's good to see. I also want to thank everybody for giving me the opportunity to understand the uniquenesses that you have with the pandemic and what you're going through. I'm looking forward today to learn and to listen to you and figure out how the federal government can support your businesses, and in the future, how we can help you out. The government recently announced new support measures for businesses across the country, including the new Canadian Emergency Rent Subsidy, extending the Canadian Emergency Wage Subsidy, and expanding the Canadian Emergency Business Account. We know that small and medium-sized businesses are the lifeblood of Canada, and over 98% of businesses in Canada are small businesses, and making their success is key for Government of Canada to succeed. Small businesses are the lifeblood of our communities, creating well-paying jobs, growing our economy, and cultivating a sense of identity, pride, and local ownership. During the COVID response, the federal government is responsible for over 90% of COVID relief money that has come from the federal government, not only into the riding, but into Canada. Sorry about this. Get rid of that phone. The federal government, first I want to touch on basically a few of the programs, and I'll just go over them quickly. Canadian Emergency Commercial Rent Assistance. The federal government has partnered with over 139,000 small businesses with the Canadian Emergency Commercial Rent Assistance. This supports 1.18 million Canadian jobs across the country. This is going to be replaced now with the Canadian Emergency Rent Subsidy. Minister Ning announced last week that this support will help small business tenants who are in need to help in the second wave of the pandemic. For organizations temporarily shut down by mandatory public health order issue, they'll qualify for a 65% rate subsidy. And in the throne speech, there was a commitment to provide direct financial support to businesses temporarily shut down as a result of the pandemic. CECRA has expired on September 30th, which has left many commercial tenants without support. To this end, organizations will be able to come under the new program retroactively for the period of September 27th to October 24th. The Canadian Emergency Wage Subsidy, to date, 3.7 million Canadian workers have been supported by this program through the pandemic. Income supports like this have helped families and workers across Canada. The government confirmed its intention to extend the wage subsidy until June 2021, and providing details on the wage subsidy are proposed to apply on December 19th. Online, will open up October 25th. The Canadian Emergency Business Account, over 765 businesses owners are benefiting from CEBA so far, including small proprietors, sole proprietors, and business owners who depend on contracts. An expanded Canadian Emergency Business Account, which will be able to businesses and nonprofits eligible for CEBA loans, and will continue during the pandemic to access an interest-free loan of up to $20,000 in additional to the original amount of $40,000. Half of this additional funding would be forgivable if repaid by December 31st, 2020. Also, we've announced the Regional Relief Recovery Fund. It's a federal investment of $1.5 billion through the Regional Relief and Recovery Fund. This is delivered through regional development agencies to help business that may not qualify for other programs. This includes business in rural communities, such as Front Street businesses, tourism, hospitality, and other sectors. Eligibility to this program is eligible through federal economic development agencies for Southern Ontario. Also announced last week, or in the last couple of weeks, Minister Ning announced $12 million in the Canadian United Small Business Relief Fund. This fund is to help grants of up to $5,000 to cover costs of things like personal protective equipment, enhancements to e-commerce, physical modifications to meet evolving health and safety standards. Starting on October 26th, businesses can apply through this on an online portal on the Ontario Chamber of Commerce website for this new funding. Canada Infrastructure Bank also is a growth plan that will help Canadians get back to work, is expected to create 60,000 jobs. The 3-year plan will connect more households to the internet, small businesses to high-speed internet, strengthen Canadian agriculture, and help build a low-carbon economy. And lastly, I'll leave with this here is something that everybody knows about. It was the CERB, the $2,000 a month to help employees and help small business owners. It has been changed now to the Canada Recovery Benefit. This Canada Recovery Benefit will provide eligible workers with $500 a week. This is taxable for up to 26 weeks for those who are not employed or self-employed due to COVID-19, who are not eligible for EI or have had their unemployment or self-employment income reduced by at least 50% due to COVID-19. This benefit will be paid in a 2-week period. So now I'll turn the floor back over to you, Jill. I'm here basically to listen to your chamber members, to see where they're at, how their businesses are doing, and if there's anything that they think the federal government can do to help them make business easy and profitable.
Oh, and thank you, Neil. We appreciate that for sure. And like I say, I think maybe you caught our lead in. We just spent a few minutes, about half an hour, 45 minutes talking in advance to kind of get an overview of where the points of pain are now as we sit. But I think overwhelmingly, we all feel that the federal government really has stepped up, and the programs that you put in place, the wage subsidy for sure, the CEBA, well less used, the SECRA. And I think the only problem anybody is experiencing now that we're finding is the challenge with getting people to come back to work. So we were already having a labor shortage in this region, and without having to become a whistleblower or report people who are applying for jobs but not coming to interviews, because now the requirement is that they have to have an active job search, it's causing a real dilemma. And that would be the question: is there some way to encourage people who can work that they should be working, even if they can't work in their same sector? And I understand this conversation is starting to come out, but is there going to be, I guess the one question will be, is there going to be an active campaign to try and move people from one sector to another where workers are desperately needed? I'll let you answer that right now, actually.
Yeah, and that's a interconnected and complicated issue. And I mean, our area, as you're well aware, before COVID hit was a very low unemployment rate, around 5 or 6%. So we were shortage of workers now. And then since we've gone through COVID, that shortage has still appeared. And some of the programs that we are doing in federal government is probably I'm having trouble spinning that word out today, some workers to coming back to work. It's something that, as MPs, we've been talking to the minister about, whether there'll be something rolling out or more of how would I say it, a snitch line that you talked about, or things like that are in the works now, but it's definitely a problem in some ridings.
And that was where, one suggestion was if there could even be a regional approach to some of that, the accessibility to some of that funding. So the other question we had was the manufacturing. We have a couple of manufacturers here today, and they also joined us with other at other levels of government. I can't speak either. But the fact that manufacturing is not really being regarded as a major employer, and some of the impact that they have been considered pretty much essential workers as well. And many of them have been struggling to get people to stay in the job. So there's that challenge. Of course, they've also had to pivot with regard to personal protective equipment. That's more with the Ministry of Health and some of the things that come out provincially. But I think the point was they wanted just to be recognized. And this also leads into the next piece about the new announcement on plastics. So for many of our manufacturers, plastic is seen as part of the raw material or is an outcome of production. And this insistence that plastics have to be banned when we're not, it's one thing to say that about plastic bags and plastic straws. It's another thing when it's a key, critical piece of manufacturing. And I don't expect you to have the answer to that. I think we just need you to make sure that you're fully aware that we have a lot of businesses in this area who depend on that.
And Jill, I think it's something that you and I probably should sit down with after things go through and we get over COVID, just to see a reaction from the chamber on the banning of plastics and see where we're going with that.
Right. And thank you. That would be really helpful, and maybe we could organize something around that for sure. The other question, workers, a lot of the challenges businesses are facing is the impact from Ministry of Labor, Ministry of Health. How do you manage? And I understand some of that has to be internal, but how can we ensure that workers come to work when they're healthy, but when they don't come to work, what is the so we need some clarity of when a person qualifies for income support if they can't come to work because they don't feel well. Now that they have to check in every single day, if an employer lets someone come in and they feel like they're not well, but they feel it's not a worsening symptom, but that gets tracked back to COVID, or they're afraid to come to work, or they're afraid they can't not go to work. So it's such a difficult situation. What is the program that's there to support someone who can't go to work for 4 days while they're waiting for their test?
Okay, so there's two programs, and one is the Canada Recovery Caregiving Benefit. So that is eligible for $500 a week if you have to stay home to look after a family member, a child, somebody that's sick, somebody that's required to quarantine. And then there's the Canada Recovery Sickness Benefit, which would probably be more on the lines of what you mentioned. It provides, again, a $500 taxable amount. But this is for workers who are unable to work at least 50% of the week because they've contacted COVID-19, are self-isolating, or have underlying conditions that are undergoing treatments that have contacted, or they might be more susceptible to having COVID or be in more of a risk factor. This has to be an opinion of a medical practitioner or a nurse practitioner. Somebody like that would have to know this or get a note from them. And this benefit will be paid over, I believe, a 1 week period.
So it kind of covers your first 4 or 5 days.
Yeah, so what we did in the CERB, we divided in, I just spoke about the Canadian Recovery Benefit, but we divided it into 3 different benefits. So the Canadian Recovery Benefit, the Canadian Recovering Caregiving Benefit, and then the sickness benefit.
Okay, I will ask Scott if he needs further clarification. Does that help?
It does, but I think I want to point out to Mr. Ellis that the 50% requirement they have to miss, while I understand there should be some minimum threshold, it creates an incentive for someone to take 3 days off in the week when they might have only needed 1.
Okay, I'm making notes here.
And I will email you some of this stuff as well, just so that so that you're not trying to answer everything on the fly, because we don't expect you to have all these answers.
And see, the issue is, and I guess, sorry, Jill, I cut you off, is that we have so many programs and there are people that are slipping through the cracks, not getting the programs, but there's people that are getting the programs that aren't entitled to it.
Sure.
Overall, we have to believe in people and get the amounts out as quick as possible because of COVID. And I think, overall, there'll be a little bit of backtracking when income tax come due and things like that, we'll have measures set up to catch some of the people. But when it goes back to people taking a day off or as opposed to 2 or 3 with the COVID benefit, that's hard for us to figure out. It's, how dedicated your employees are.
And I understand it's not easy to come up with one. I'm just imagining a person that has to leave Monday from work because they find out their kid might be sick and get sent home from school, and they end up waiting home on Tuesday for them to get their COVID test result. They get it by Tuesday night. They could come to work Wednesday, but now they've got an incentive to say, I'm going to stay home Wednesday so I can collect my pay for these 2 days instead of coming into work.
And the benefit, there are some factories here in Belleville, and I won't mention it if your child is sent home from school, that you're two weeks quarantine, so you're off and you're sent home. They are really locking down on people being sick in your family.
Yeah. Thank you.
And it's a challenge all the way around because it's a double-edged sword. I mean, you do one for the other, and God forbid anybody gets sick because you veered the other way. So another good question, and this may also involve provincial, but it makes some sense that...
We'll just say it's all provincial and go to the next question.
No, you're not getting off that easy. But I think it talks about a conversation that needs to happen with regard to education and the impact or the lack of access that private companies have to educational training funding. So right now, if somebody were to, a large organization has access to cash flow that provides bonusing, hiring bonuses, and then your private industry that doesn't have the capacity to do that. We see it in childcare, we see it in healthcare, and because public companies can't afford to pay that much more, private businesses are losing out on the same skilled staff. So there's also a question if private industry were able to recruit people to a particular field that they say, okay, we can see they have transferable skill sets. We'd love to see them move into this particular skilled sector, let's say PSW, for example, how can we encourage them? Do we have access to some type of funding? There's an extra part to this question, but I just want you to consider that. And then also, a lot of the training that happens with private industry happens internally, and there's no access to some funding to support that. Currently, the only way for anybody to get funding for training is because you're going to provide them with a job, or it's going to increase their skill set to a new job. And that seems to impact the ability of employers to even move people from within. So the training is available within, but they can't move forward to that. Does that kind of capture what you were thinking, Scott and Maxine?
Sorry, I just want to add one detail to it, Joe, which is that the only training we ever get government compensation for is something that can be invoiced to a third party. And we need to be able to, and most of the training needs to be done in-house by our own staff. So it's never eligible for government funding.
And my comment was directly related to getting PSW resources. And I've got people that I can get that, as Jill said, they've got the right skills, but they don't have the certification. I would like the government to help them get the certification so I can employ them as a small business.
Okay, and I will try to give my best answer to this question. A lot of this is provincial, but some of it is under federal. There are programs that we support right now, and I'm trying to draw names of them. I think Ignite is one that's in the county for retraining of individuals, but they're related to different sectors. So the one sector would be tourism, and the other, I believe, is in Trenton is a food sector. There are dollars that are announced in our platform for retraining of green jobs. So people that are going to lose their jobs because of the green economy. And I believe it was training of around 50,000 people. There was an amount of number, but I'll have to look that up. I'm just kind of pulling this one out of my memory. But Scott, you're right. Most dollars go through third-party organizations, and it doesn't do a lot of help for you guys if you can't apply to a program that is related to your sector. Taking notes on this, again, this is a discussion that is provincial under the labor and under this, but it's noted on our programs, and I can get, what I'll do is look up the programs we do have, but related. I think one is through ADECO, which is a third party, and I'm not sure if it's ADECO or one of the agencies, and then the other through Loyalist College.
I think the one other question that relates to what happens when this is all over is there a limit to the debt? Who's that going to be passed on to? Kim Egan has sent me an email, and I think she also copied Scott on this, but I will just quote from her because she wasn't able to join us. Debt is not endless. There will be a cost to all Canadians for the money wasted at every level of government. What is the government's position to recovering and paying back debt, and how much of this might be owed to foreigners? Are you able to comment on any of that right now?
Foreign debt I couldn't comment on. We borrow at the lowest amount interest-wise. That's basically it. So I mean, our due diligence is whether it's lent to foreign, it's done and shopped on interest rates. So that's basically it. I could try to get a breakdown on that for you. And the other part of your question, I'm sorry, was.
Is there a limit?
Oh, limit to debt. Yeah. Okay. And again, we look at, it's about coming out of COVID, coming out not in a recession and coming out of COVID strong. So you can look at the amount of debt that we've incurred, but what is the right answers? What programs should we cancel? And you look at all the programs that I went through, and what I see coming in the office now are a lot of people that want extension of programs, whether that's, targeted funding to small businesses, other places that we have not hit, Legions, fairs, which the Ontario government did pick up, but they were lobbying me. And there's a lot of nonprofits that are slipping through the cracks too. So part of our funding announcement in the throne speech, there'll be money, I believe, coming for recreational programs to Legions and things like this. but they are the social fabric of our communities. So do you let all organizations go down and not support them? The federal government, as I said before, we've presented over 90% of funds towards COVID in this riding and across Canada have come to the federal government. From the federal government, we've had the fiscal capacity to provide this money. When we get out on the other side, yes, we're going to have to look at other things. I don't want to say, tax is a four-letter word, but recovery time, everybody's probably going to have to pay a little bit more. Some of the suggestions that have come through the office are like a consumption of raising the GST, things like that. I don't want to say that we're going to do that. That's just suggestions that have come through. You've read in the everybody in the paper or wealth tax and things like this, but these are just conversations right now. We're focused on COVID. We're focused on you, and we're focused on businesses, and we're focused on coming out of this on the other side.
And I would concur that we all know that that's really what we have to do. We can't predict. I guess it's just important that we continue from a fiscally responsible perspective to continue to put it on the table now and then.
Yeah, and you look, some of the numbers, 3.7 million people that have, gone to the Canadian wage subsidy. That's a lot of people, and that's a lot of Canadians that wouldn't have had any money coming in when we were shut down. Small business count, 765,000 businesses that, receive the $40,000 and, hopefully they make the terms and only have to pay back 30. So these numbers have, are phenomenal of the people that need the supports, or not, I guess phenomenal, that wouldn't be the right word, are, somewhat troubling that we have that many people, but we were shut down since March. And I mean, the province shut us down, and the federal government, I believe, moved really quick to come out with the programs. Some are announced and later they do come out after, 2 to 3 weeks. But I think, government does move slow. As being a former mayor, I thought municipalities move slow. Federal government and provincial government are at a snail's pace. And, I am proud of being able to, the programs that we have rolled out during COVID. And I think that, some people have fallen through the cracks, and we're looking at that now.
So then, yeah, and what, we've said that in the beginning, it was the net was cast far, the holes were large, the holes have gotten much smaller, fewer and fewer have slipped through. Now we're looking at a couple of situations, and these were the other two big issues that were brought forward. Funding for childcare. This is a difficult question because in this case, you have a home childcare provider who is wondering if there's a way to move the money to the agency so that if a parent isn't able to bring their child in due to sickness, illness, whatever, but the childcare agency should be paid, is there some way to make that circle work better where the funding could go to the childcare provider based on having that child as one of their regular or having that child as a regular client, or that family is a regular client. So this would be even in a situation where it's a home child care provider. So the agency provides someone to come into my home to provide childcare. Now all of a sudden we're in a COVID situation, so I don't have the childcare worker person coming in. So am I obligated to pay? And this becomes a challenge. So there's some question about how that might work. And I don't know that you have an answer to that one.
I really don't have an answer. I just would comment that in our platform, and again, we had a childcare announcement, or childcare is very expensive. And when you look at the Quebec model, that amounts to $30 or $40 a day, or a remark that's, or even less than that. Through COVID times as a government, and there's been a lot of talk around this, we realized that childcare has to be looked at. This has been shown at, people staying at home and having COVID and all that we're going through. That and the broadband situation are two of the top issues that have been talked about around the table with government. So, in that, I would look for some type of childcare funding that will be coming through the federal coffers.
And that came from Candy, so I don't know if that helps at all.
Yes, it does. Also, can you explain a little bit more about that Canada Recovered Childcare Benefit? Is that for the outsourced people if they're not on payroll?
Yeah, so the Canada Recovered Caregiving Benefit, Is that what, yeah. So basically, I'll just read what I've got here. It's the particulars of it's 26 weeks per household for workers unable to, for at least 50% of the week, must care for a child under the age of 12 or a family member because schools, daycares, or care facilities are closed due to COVID-19. Or if because a child or family member is sick or required a quarantine. So it does amount to daycares or care facilities being closed.
Okay, thank you.
And I also had something from Cindy Wilson from Becklawat regarding immigration. And this, again, came up in the provincial side. Other businesses are moving forward, maybe not completely as normal, but they are busy. And it seems that access to regular resources, for example, through immigration contacts, all of those resources have been completely blocked. They're getting stonewall, brick wall communication, no way to access them. So they have, for example, looking for somebody who wants to move into a permanent residency situation, they are employed and they are not able to reach anyone.
Right now, yeah. And so our office is here to help, and we do have somebody that handles immigration and labor market assessments and all that has to do with temporary foreign workers and foreign workers that are trying to get into the country. So I know right now bureaucratic answers are very slow. Sometimes through our office we can get them quicker. So if anybody does have issues or that, I know that we did help one of the businesses we opened a couple weeks ago to get people in to fix their machinery and set that up. So we do have resources here to help.
So Cindy should just call you.
Call the office, yeah, definitely.
Does that help, Cindy?
That's fantastic. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I should get an answer when I call there. I appreciate it.
Hopefully, if not, tell them to talk to me. And the other programs, we did offer a program that was announced probably about a year ago for citizenship with meat packing plants, I believe, abattoirs and things for that. So it was a specialized program. And I think, more so that we have to look at other areas that we are shortage in labor because these are going to have to be filled by immigration.
Okay. So is last question that I can think of, and then I'll just open it because I think we have you for a few more minutes. Any issues regarding sourcing or access to PPE forthcoming that you can see? Do we have Mr. Trump sequestered over where he belongs?
I haven't heard shortages. I've heard large numbers coming in. I believe today there was 100,000 rapid test kits that come in. Masks last week, there were millions of masks. I've got the numbers that come over my email. So there hasn't been a shortage. I know I was at my dentist's office the other day and some people like that are running out of masks or are complaining, or not complaining, or informing me that how much masks have gone up, that, a typical $2 mask is gone to $10 and things like that. But through hospitals and things like that, we get the product in and then the provinces distribute it. And right now, I believe there's a stockpile.
Okay. And Suzanne mentions here, are most federal employees still working from home, and are they working full time? And is it just, is the lack of access to these federal departments because they've been pushed over to a different department, or is it because their departments are essentially shut down?
And that's most are still working from home, and there's different, not only the risk in Ottawa being a high risk area right now, it's, the shutdown and lockdown of things like getting on an elevator. So when you're working on the 22nd floor and there's only 2 to 4 people allowed on an elevator, by the time you get up to your office, it's lunchtime. And by the time you get back up, it's time to go home. So there are some barriers for some people working. Our staff that we deal with, I'm in the agriculture file, where they're all working from home, but they're accessible. And actually, I found that some people are more accessible at, I shouldn't be doing this, but, getting emails at 9 and 10 o'clock and sending them out. But I think that it's going to be a while before everybody gets back to work. And I think, a lot of businesses that can work from home are still working from home, small businesses.
Okay, so we have a couple more minutes. I guess, how much more time do we have with you, Neil?
I've got to go on question period with about 15 minutes.
Okay.
So we're doing virtual now. So we are working from home doing virtual parliament, and next week I'm there for 2 weeks straight. So.
Well, very good. So I'll just open it up if anybody wants to make a quick comment. We are recording, so you might want to keep that in mind and go from there. But I just want to thank you in case we get cut short at the very end and you have to run. Thank you so much for coming. Really appreciate having everybody here today. Again, with regard to supporting Small Business Week across the country. We can't thank you enough for everything you've done to not forget business through the pandemic. That's certainly important. But now I'll open it up to anybody else.
I'll just mumble a few things while you guys are waiting. Is I'm just really happy that the Canadian Chamber of Commerce has got involved with the COVID response and brought their views up to the federal government. And it's the small chambers like yourself that bring those issues to the Canadian Chamber or to the Ontario Chamber through the Canadian Chamber. So, a lot of it starts on the ground here, and, the Chamber, and I say it all the time, the Chamber is a group that really helps our community. And I can't thank you enough, not only for supporting the small businesses, but lobbying the provincial and federal governments.
I'll maybe just jump in, seeing as you're saying such nice things about the Chambers of Commerce. I should also reciprocate and just say that the communications that I've been able to be part of through Minister Ng's office with her Chief of Staff, Jason Easterbrook, with another assistant, Francis. They've been doing them from the very beginning of the pandemic. They were on the phone every day from 11 to 11:30 across the country, Monday to Friday, every day. Just trying to help businesses and various networks of businesses. Like there was, the travel agents network and all these different people across the country, not just Chambers of Commerce, but many other organizations, CFIB and manufacturing. And then as things started to sort of get clarified a little bit, they cut them down to 3 days a week. Now they're 2 days a week, Wednesdays and Fridays. But that has really been a lifeline. And I took full advantage. I still tune in every day, even if I'm working away while I'm listening to what the issues are. And I've been able to take that information, which has often been clarified and put in such a succinct form that I could share it out with the business community and help for them to focus on the business information, which sometimes gets lost on the nightly news and through other news medias in with all the other information out there. So I know I've told you this personally when we met, but I did want to just say it again publicly that the staff through Minister Ng's office, which I think is probably the ministry that's worked most closely with some of the business issues and others has been outstanding. And I feel that that staff have gone above and beyond what was expected of them.
Thank you for those comments, and I'll relay that to the minister. Hopefully I'll see her next week. But and that's been, I've heard that over and over. Mayor Ferguson did a couple Zoom meetings with some parliamentary secretaries, Kate Young, and they were responsible for receiving was announced a couple of weeks ago, Prince Edward County received, I believe, $500,000 for their Main Street businesses for PPE and I guess to, make their businesses more safe. And that was a fund that was through the economic development, but it was a fund that Mayor Ferguson lobbied for and was able to get money off that fund. So there are some dollars that are coming in, that programs that I didn't talk about in COVID today that have been well received in the riding.
And I guess one other thing, maybe I could just jump in quickly. Do you have any idea of the dollar amount or when it's going to be available through the expanded regional fund? I'm assuming that's going to be administered through Trendval again. Yeah, and maybe they're waiting to make an announcement. Maybe it's coming up soon on that.
The fund that was announced, what they topped the fund up, I believe they announced that last week, but I'm going to have to get the amount back to you. That was done on a conference call. I don't have the notes in front of me here. No, I don't.
Because I know that was a great fund for any business that didn't seem to meet the criteria under the CEBA and needed some help. They were able to look at it on a case-by-case basis, even if they didn't fall exactly into the specific criteria that CEBA had. And I'm just waiting to find out when people can start applying for that again.
So basically, they should check through the Economic Development Agency. FedDev in Ontario, I've got the number I could give you is the 800 number is 1-866-593-5505. What it says here is the total investment through the Regional Relief Fund is $1.5 billion. So I believe that would be the combined fund, which is announced, combined with the first announcement. But Suzanne, what I can do is check that and see if there's a date on that and get back to you. But you're right, it did help a lot of people that fell through the cracks. A lot of businesses.
So I noticed there was an incentive for a digital Main Street that came out locally through Trenval, and I think that's the funding that you were talking about. Yep. The Main Street
funding. And that, now are you in the so there's two, the regional relief, which would be that funding, and then there was, if you're in the county, the funding that we announced through the FedDev. But that was for the county only.
Yeah, so I'm still struggling with PPE, paying for PPE, and also obtaining it in a timely manner. Is there, like, N95 masks are extremely expensive. We're not at a point where we're using a lot of them. I've got maybe a dozen. I'm just keeping them in case we need them. With the local producers and being a smaller business, and I don't work through the LIN, I don't work through the hospital or anything like that. I'm finding it a little more difficult to get reasonably priced PPE as a smaller business.
Mm-hmm. So
and I'm not on Front Street. I work out of my home.
Oh. So we announced, and I touched on it a bit. Sorry, I didn't keep going if you had.
No, that's good.
And this, I touched on it, and I can just touch on it again a little. I've got some more notes on it. Was the $12 million that was announced about 2 weeks ago, and each business would be available or eligible for a grant up to $5,000. So this would cover the cost of things, personal protective equipment, enhancements to e-commerce, physical modifications to meet evolving health and safety standards. So this would be something that you should qualify. Okay. These grants will help small businesses owners cover the cost of all these things. This is starting October 26th, and it's through the Ontario Chamber of Commerce website for the funding. So I don't know if Suzanne would have anything to add to that, or if Jill would have anything.
Yeah, no, I think Jill and I have the same information. It is open up on Monday, and you have to have receipts. So it's not for stuff that you're going to purchase. You have to include receipts. So any money you've spent up till now that you haven't already received another funding payment for, then you can go ahead and submit those receipts and get up to $5,000. The sooner the better, because it isn't unlimited, and it will be sort of queued. I do know that they think it was on Wednesday, Jill. They told us they have just hired another 15 intake officers to help go through the applications as they come in. So certainly I would get everything ready to go so you can get on that queue as soon as it opens up.
So Maxine, did that answer your question, I guess?
Yes, it did. It did. And that's very helpful. And I just want to say, I think the federal government has done a fabulous job responding. I did have an opportunity to work in a long-term care home in Toronto for a month as part of the SWAT team, along with the military.
Oh, well, thank you for that.
And I can't say enough about the military either. Those folks were fabulous at pulling everything together and bringing about change. And I'd like to continue to see that change happening in the long-term care.
And we announced that in the throne speech, which you'd be well aware of, about a national standard for long-term care homes.
Yes.
Well, and that was one of the top issues probably during COVID that we received emails on here. And I mean, we didn't have the outbreaks. Hastings Manor did have a few, but we did receive numerous calls and emails on. Some of the provinces don't like this. There's been a little bit of kickback saying that we're getting involved in provincial issues, but there has to be something done about it.
Yes, yes, and I'd be more than willing to provide any input you need regarding that. If there's a committee or anything you need help with, or some input from being on the front line, it was an incredible experience, and I worked right with the military. I reported to them every day any of the issues I saw, and it was great to see the report come out from them. Had all my issues.
Thank you, and thank you for doing that. No, that's
so it was great.
Yeah. Did you move to Toronto for a while then, or?
I did for a month. Yeah, I was put up in a hotel for a month, and it was fabulous. It was sad, but it was a fabulous experience. And you know, I would encourage other people to take the jump and go and help out when it's needed. And the military, again, they just did things so perfectly. They worked tirelessly for 12 hours and 7 days a week. They just go. And it was just incredible to work with them. And, you know, the people that were already at the home, there were things they were doing wrong. And, you know, so us from the outside in the military would talk about it and say, you know, this doesn't look right, or that doesn't look right, or that's not protocol. And the captain said, don't worry, I'll put that in my report. And it was just great to see that report come out. And thank you so much to them and to the government for helping everybody.
Right. And so I'll echo that for sure. And we are at 10 to 2, and I know you don't have a long commute, but you do have to get moving.
I just go from one Zoom meeting to the next, right?
So no, that's what my day feels like. I'm starting to get hoarse, but that's okay.
It was funny last night. We had a vote last night, so I have my one computer screen, and when there's a vote on, virtually you have to stay on for the vote, the whole vote on the screen. So we had 2 votes, which was 2 hours. I had a Zoom meeting, which fell in between. So I had my other computer hooked up to get into the Zoom. And once this one closed, bang, I was right on and pushed the screen across into my second computer. I think some days I almost need 3.
Well, that's it. We're sitting here. I've got my phone here. I've got the other thing there working through. And then on Monday, we'll be going through the Canadian Chamber policy resolution debate. And that's exactly what will happen, is that we'll have, especially if we have a proxy vote. So you've got, because you have to be on separate things. So not that I completely feel your pain, but I understand the challenge.
So, and then I'll touch on one, and I'm going to check, Jill, and I'll send you, I know we had a fund, and I believe it's still going or still on. It was announced in 2018. It was the Women's Entrepreneurship Fund. And I know two women in the riding received. It was Clearwater Design and Pasta received it. And what I'm going to do is I put that in my notes. I've asked Corinne to look and see if that program is still there and maybe something we can promote through our office in the chamber.
We'd be happy to, for sure. Yeah. Okay, so I'll give you a heads up that I did capture you while you were all smiling. And so that may go out on social media. I hope you don't mind. And thanks to everyone for joining us today. Our next session, I think, starts at 3, and it's about LinkedIn networking, followed by networking in general, easier said than done, followed by a wine at 5, where you can practice all what you've learned in terms of networking. So if anybody's interested in joining us, we hope to see you later. And thanks again, Neil.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you for the fantastic information.
Thank you.
Thanks for hosting, Jill, and making all this happen all day.
Yeah, it's been fun.
You get a break now. Is somebody else going to host the LinkedIn one for you, or are you going?
Yes, that's through the Small Business Center. So I'll pay attention on that one. It's one of those things that I keep thinking I need to do more of, but Facebook always sucks me in. But I really enjoy reading LinkedIn more. Not gonna lie.
I'm the exact same way. I need to do more on it, but I don't know if I have the energy or the time to do it. So
Mm-hmm.
The workshop that was done by Leslie the other morning from 8 to 9 was fabulous.
Oh, good.
Absolutely. Like how to search the string to find employees.
Okay. That was one of, yes. And I mean, I was away all last week. So this week was a combination of just trying to catch up on all the things that I should have done last week and then get ready for this week. So anyway, all good. Well, thanks so much you guys for joining us.
Thanks for hosting, Jill.